Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 314. With us is, and we're changing as we speak. It's a combination of several things. First with us was Dean Schmit with Basecamp Meta. Dean, do you want me to introduce you differently than Basecamp Meta, or is it just we're going to stay with Basecamp Meta? I mean, you're doing so many things now.
That, metasearchmarketing.com, 8560. We got all kinds of things going on.
You're a jack of all trades. Jack of all trades. Also with us, Mr. Tim Peter with Tim Peter and Associates. And as he quickly pointed out to us, for the third week in a row, this is like winning the lottery for 3 weeks. I am bonus round on that one. We did have Mr.
Or like being hit by lightning again and again and again.
Or being hit by lightning again and again, I guess. We also did have Miss Stephanie Smith with CoHosts, but she has blinked out again. She's having some audio issues, so we're back and forth. And also with us is Ms. Adele Gutman from AdeleGutman.com. I'm at my World Amalgamate headquarters of Hospitality Digital Marketing at home because I'm still waiting for CenturyLink, which I could spend the entire hour talking about how bad customer service is, but we won't because everybody knows that because I have to buy a router from the very provider, and of course the router is somewhere lost in delivery land for a whole week. So until that happens, I can't really work out of the office, so I am at my home office for now. So anyways, keeping to the fact that trying to keep on to a topic and so forth, I did want to raise a question for everybody. I'm being reflected by some of the clients that I have, and I'd love to hear if you guys are having the same. There's been a shift in demographics of the people that they were dealing with over the summer demand, and now they're getting different demand, different demographics coming to the resorts and the hotels that are, for the instances that it gave me, much more patient with the concept of the COVID delays and the limited servicing and so forth. As one of my clients put it, if this late check-in situation happened yesterday, he said, I would have had a riot. Today, they're like completely understanding. Like it was a night and day transformation of people. So I thought maybe that was an interesting starting point of a dialogue, or if there was, any other concept or topics you'd like to bring up, I'd be happy to listen to those as well.
Well, kind of related to that, I want to talk about just demand in general for a moment. Those that don't know, I just returned from a trip to Mexico, which all kinds of things I'd love to talk about on that. But in particular, first of all of my flights were full. So there was not an empty seat, middle seat or otherwise. Every flight I was on was full the whole way. Coming back into the United States, of course, I was going through Dallas-Fort Worth, and you have to go through customs there, right? That's natural. I've traveled internationally many times. I've been through that customs at Dallas-Fort Worth many times. I have never seen it this full. I mean, there was a line. If you've ever been to the one there, it's a huge room, a football field long, easily, and 3 stories high. So a huge room. There was a line coming out of that room and back to the walkway on the other side of it. Now, Global Entry had no line. Apparently nobody is using Global Entry, which I can kind of understand why, right? Because you haven't traveled internationally for a year right by now. So all the people that might have thought about doing that 2 years ago didn't, right? Mm-hmm. And now you've got new people who weren't traveling internationally before that are, and there was actually no line on Global Entry whatsoever. Nobody was using it. But as you go through customs now, they have a facial recognition scan. So I didn't have to punch anything in. They didn't really even look at my passport. They just said, smile for the camera. And you went through. Nice and efficient, a little creepy, but yeah. So there is some demand. Oh my gosh, there is some demand. Now, we're still in August. We haven't gotten into the September and onward yet. But to your point, though, of asking about, is there a difference in the attitude of the travelers of, like you said, if there was a late check-in, that kind of thing? I've heard the horror stories from people about fights on airplanes and all those kind of things, and people upset about wearing a mask or whatever, somebody who didn't, whatever. I saw no issues with that whatsoever. Everybody was very kind to each other, very patient with each other, just generally good people.
So, Tim, our evil plan to get Dean stopped at the border, I misspelled his last name when I gave our friend at TSA his insight. So,
well, I think it was when we used the anonymous mask as the facial recognition. That probably didn't work.
Yeah. Hindsight, yeah. Hey, Dean, we got another trip to Mexico for you. No.
Yeah, right.
And I don't have a lot. Oh, Adele, we can't hear you. I don't have a lot to add on this. I mean, my experience with travel and from what I'm hearing from my clients and the like pretty much echoes Dean's. To be fair, I haven't really heard. I hadn't really heard much negative prior. Now I realize there's all the stories, you see the things in the news and the like, but it hadn't been my experience to date either. So I can't. I want to be very clear. We're talking, a half dozen to 8 or 9 total data points. So to call this data, my anecdotes are not data; they are my anecdotes. But I haven't seen problems up till now, other than what gets reported, the viral videos and all that kind of stuff. So.
I guess Stephanie's going to try to join us a little bit. She's only getting a meg up and down, which will definitely be a slow point for any conversation on her video. And I was dying to ask her how AHOA went, because she just got back from AHOA and stuff. But Dean, other than all the hard work you were doing in Mexico and the toilless hours of
the beach time and everything was it was really hard on me, I tell you. But no, actually, seriously, we did do a 4-hour in-depth training on MetaSearch. And I don't think that I've ever had to talk for 4 hours at a time. My voice was actually just about done by the time we were doing that. But by the way, I have to give some props out to the property that I was staying at. It was a group of hotels called Tafer Resorts, and they have the Garza Blanca Hotel in Puerto Vallarta. And let me tell you, this place was amazing. We talk a lot of times with Adele, especially she's not back on yet, but we talk about guest service, reputation management, giving them something to talk about, and all those things. They did all of it. The day that I'm leaving, I sit down for breakfast and had no conversation with the waitress whatsoever about the fact that I was leaving that day, right? I've sat down for breakfast. She waits for me to get settled down, brings over a plate to me that has a neat little cheesecake fruit thing going on it, and a note written in chocolate syrup that says "Safe Travels," and sets it down in front of me. Wow. I mean, how did you know? And just the number of things that they did that were so simple like that, but so impactful. Where everything was clean. I watched a guy scrubbing the cracks on the pavement. I mean, everything was clean. People greeted you everywhere. It is just absolutely amazing. So, I'm saying that to tout this property and to give them kudos. I'm also saying it to say that, boy, folks, you want to see somebody doing it right? That was everything that we always say that you ought to do. They did it.
Now, Dean, is this? I'm not familiar with the property. Is it a 4-star property, or 5-star property?
Ironically, it is a 4-star property. They have a 5-star property up the hill from them that are side by side.
Yep.
Their 5-star property is ranked 3rd in the market. Believe it or not, this property was ranked 15th in the market in Puerto Vallarta. 15th, which still just absolutely baffles me, because I'm like, that has got to be such a competitive environment that this hotel, that by my standards did everything right, and they still were only ranked number 15. Adele and I were talking about this by email a couple of days past day here.
Their sister hotel. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Their sister hotel in where is it that has all the timeshares? Cabo. Yeah, in Los Cabos. That one was on the TripAdvisor Traveler's Choice Awards, being the best of the best in the top 25 hotels in Mexico and the top 25 most romantic hotels in Mexico. So that's really a great accomplishment. So if their sister hotel can be there, I'm sure the whole group can get up there. Sometimes a lot of things about what to do great, but when something wrong happens, it doesn't mean that you know how to adapt to that and fix that problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
they're wired to do a lot of things wonderfully. And it's just a tiny bit of tweaking that's needed, I guess. I'm sure that they can get to the top. Yeah, I was so impressed with that picture you sent me, Dean.
Oh, yeah, the picture I was just describing to you guys, I sent over to Adele.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is really sparkling sunshine.
Absolutely.
And then in comparison, Mr. Tim is going to be traveling down to the land of Florida here soon with the wonderful current status of Florida.
Which, we'll take it as it comes.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Hey, Nebraska is still the only part of the country that isn't red when you look at all the
Wow.
COVID maps.
Actually, New Jersey has done pretty well.
You're built for socially distancing.
But that we are. We've been socially distancing since 1892.
We were
That's so
socially
funny.
distancing before it was cool.
Before it was cool.
Exactly.
Okay.
I just catched a whiff of it while I was just walking in the apartment over to the office. That something like 4 teachers died in the last 24 hours in Broward County, I think it was.
Yeah.
Fort Lauderdale area, I guess.
Yeah,
that is some tragedy. That is some tragedy.
There's going to be probably more stories to that as it unfolds. Out of curiosity, since I tossed my topic out of the demographics and the change of marketing, and in all honesty, I don't really think from my current discussions is people are trying to reevaluate the value proposition of competitive marketing, which is just my catchphrase of doing the strategy associated with marketing, not just the broadcasting of marketing, but the idea that you're looking at comp sets and you're looking at, how you're going to manipulate, what you're actually competing against in your market rather than just handling what's in your front of the face. And so I would love to hear anybody else's what's in the front of their mind perspective right now, because as Dean asked me earlier in the green room before we started out, I'm probably not going to make it to HSMAI at the end of September for a couple of reasons. Family reasons that might happen, family coming over from Europe if they open it up. And of course, that means that's number one obligation for me. I can't go anywhere if I'm going to be hosting family. But the other is actually my growing hesitancy to even consider travel, because literally Florida to Texas is like frying pan to the fryer, or vice versa, whatever way you want to look at it. And I know that optimistically we're hoping that conferences like that, and when Stephanie was with us, she had just come back from AHOA, the data conference is going on right now in Nashville. You have this earnest desire that things are better than the way we see them locally. But there's this just how far is this going to go? I mean, we have hospitals and so forth that are already saying that they don't have capacity anymore. Is this going to have an impact? And I want to bring it up. I don't want to talk politics. I don't want to talk just the impact on our industry. Is this going to begin to modify people's travel decisions going into fall?
I'm going to say yes. I mean, I know we've talked about this before. We talked about it last week about the fact that, I always say, don't worry about predicting, worry about planning. Don't predict, plan. But the data points are getting pretty clear that at least at the moment, first and foremost, let me take a big step back. Things are changing moment by moment. Nobody knows what we're going to look like at the end of September, because nobody knows what we're going to look like next week, right? So right out of the gate, that's why I tend to say don't predict, plan. What I will say is that if you look at all the data, so we're in earnings season right now. Marriott has reported its earnings. Expedia has reported its earnings. Booking.com has reported its earnings. Airbnb reported its earnings yesterday or day before. And they're all saying kind of the same thing, that numbers have been really solid through Q2, and they're seeing some softening as we get later in Q3, right? They're seeing early signs that people are not booking with the same volume that they were in June and July, May, June, July. If you look at TSA throughput numbers, we seem to have hit a plateau and we haven't gotten past it. Earlier in the summer, the 7-day moving average was as high as down 14%, right? So we were getting 85% of the volume that we were getting in 2019, by the way. I'm not looking at 2021 over 2020. I'm looking at 2021 over 2019. And we were at about 85%, and that seems to have been the peak, and now we're at about 80% of where we were in 2019. And as you look forward, those numbers are getting worse. Right now it's like minus 22%, so it's like 78%. So clearly the market, the customer, the guest, is being very responsive to the news as it happens in real time.
Right.
And now that can work to our advantage. If things get better, it's entirely possible that as we get into the fall, things will swing back up a bit because people are responding to the news as it happens. But, If the news today is still the news 3-4 weeks from now, then yeah, we'd be foolish to expect that it's going to be anything other than reduced demand or people, making changes to the plans and things like that. So, don't predict, plan. What are you going to do if it's down 30%? What are you going to do if it's down 40%? What are you going to do if it's up 30%? And that could change day by day and week by week, and we have to be nimble and be prepared for that.
In the hotel recovery email, they said they talked about Expedia coming up with a quarter two report, and they said that global searches were up 35% for 22 days to 90 days out. And they said, oh, that's a sign of consumer confidence. But when I read that, my first thought was, not now, but we just have to get over this hump. Maybe I will feel really comfortable in 2 months.
Tim, for somebody that doesn't forecast, your preemptive interpretation of future tense is quite good based on the information associated with corporate travel. You almost pegged it exactly what the percentages of when we were talking about the Bill Gates forecast of 50% of the business and and you said even if 10 or 15% of that doesn't come back, dude, you put a dart in the bullseye on that one.
Well, I mean, we do. When I talk about don't predict, plan, we actually have a process we use internally that I use with my clients and the like around scenario planning. You lay out various scenarios and you do try to make some, I don't want to say predictions. You sort of look at what's the odds of various things, right? If I was a gambler, how much would I be willing to bet on this one? How much would I be willing to bet on this one? So, you can certainly look at the marketplace and say, what is the likely outcome? But the mistake that people make is, here's the thing that feels most likely. And so that's where I'm going to put all my chips on black, right? And that's not a winning strategy, right? It's more a question of, the thing that I thought was most likely, which does appear to be what's coming true. I put the odds on that at about 45% personally, right? That was my gut feel. Where did I get that number? I don't know. It felt about right to me. The next best one, I thought the odds were about 25 to 30%. So it wasn't like any of these where it's like 85, 15. It's like this is the most likely, but the most likely I was still like toss a coin, man. I'm not 100% sure. Putting some confidence around these things, like, I'm not going to put anybody here on the spot, but if we talk about where are we going to be a year from now, just pick, put a number in your head, right? Whatever number you want to say. We're going to be up 50%. We're going to be down 50%. We're going to be up 10%. We're going to be down 10%. Whatever you like, right? Okay. How much are you willing to bet that number is correct? How confident are you in that number? And right, and Dean, your laugh was exactly right? Probably not very, right? Okay, what's the next thing that you think is plausible or likely? How confident are you in that? I mean, I'm way simplifying this for what we do, but this is how we tend to look at things in terms of, where are we going to be 3 months down the road? Where are we going to be 6 months down the road? Where are we going to be 6 weeks down the road? And the further out we look, the less confident we're going to be, right? If you ask me where we're going to be 5 years from now, we're going to be better. Oh my goodness!
Right?
Hi, Melissa.
Hello, strangers.
I was just going to give Stephanie a compliment that she looked great coming back in. Like, she fixed up her internet issue and then she disappeared again. But poof, Melissa comes in. It's like, hey, Melissa. That's it for the show, right? Bye. No. Good to see you.
Welcome to Melissa Kavanagh. Melissa Kavanagh, tell us your title.
It's a good question. I got to think about that a second. I am the digital analytics senior manager at Westgate Resorts.
Sounds good.
It's the first time. It's the first time Melissa Kavanagh from Westgate Resorts has ever appeared on the show.
Right?
I'm a whole new person. I have a whole new perspective on life already.
There you go.
I haven't even got to congratulate you officially on this massive shift in your life and world and everything else. And you have a big old smile on your face, and this is good. This is good. I love this.
I miss my Fueligans, but it was a good change.
Yeah, well, I'm dying to ask, obviously. So now we've got somebody from Westgate Resorts on the call with us. So what are you seeing with demand and things that are coming into Q3, Q4?
I'm going to go along with what Tim is saying, and I have 0% confidence in predicting anything. I feel like we're exactly where we were a year ago. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm not willing to put a single dollar on forecasting anything at this point.
I think one of the big challenges is the fact that in the best case scenario, we were already kind of expecting that as the leisure traveler dropped off, kids going back to school and so forth, that business travel had not yet ramped up to take its place. Our best case scenario said that that's kind of where we were at coming into Q3, Q4. Now add this big red map of the United States when you look at the COVID thing, except for Nebraska, and that just further complicates it. It doesn't do it any good. That's for sure.
Well, and I will tell you, I had the great fortune. I participate in something with the conference board where we talk to people outside the travel industry. I'm talking to, there's confidentiality rules. I'm not trying to be coy. There's just things I can't say out loud. But we talk to people who are business execs at large companies, mainly Fortune 500 companies and things like that. And one of the questions I ask them all the time is, what is your forecast of the business travel you personally are going to be doing, or people on your team are going to be doing? And one of the things that was baked in the early part of the year, and I expect this will be true for the remaining 4 months, regardless of the news, is that most companies operate on an annual budget. And most of the companies, when they did their budgeting for 2021, didn't budget as much money for travel. So the lack of business travel from those companies was kind of baked in. Now, they were all prepared, every single one of them, that, if a sale hinged on putting a salesperson on a plane or putting a salesperson in a car and getting them in front of a customer, they were all prepared to free up budget for that. Every single one of them. Anything south of that, right? Anything other than that, it was like, no, that budget's gone for 2021. It does not exist. And now that they're starting to be in budget cycles for 2022, I plan to keep asking the same question. But I mean, for a lot of large companies, that budget was zeroed out or slashed dramatically for 2021. And the likelihood, not guarantee, but the likelihood that anybody was going to, I don't know, I'm trying to find the right metaphor, but put a stamp on it and say, no, go ahead and spend a whole bunch of money to send people to conferences, send people to whatever, when they'd already zeroed that out before we had any resurgence of pandemic, was, pretty close to zero. So I certainly wasn't too confident about that money coming back. And I'll be real curious to see what people say they're doing in 2022.
Yeah, most of my conversations, and actually, Tim, I have to give you credit for this. This has caused me to have these conversations. Is a little bit similar to things that you brought up in dialogue over the past year of our maybe when you're on the show, and that is, and not to quote a great phrase out of a movie, cause and effect from Matrix. Everything has cause and effect, and if anything, not the prediction of what the impact of it is, but the prediction of the response is more what I'm focusing on. No old process is just forgotten. All old processes are categorized as to what you were using for us. I'm saying to me, I'm taking possession of what I would say, but this is when we've done the things back in the day that kept some of our clients surviving, which was who had to travel, why did they have to travel, and where were they traveling from? These were the effects that we were focused in on during the time that we had only that limited resource for people to go and consider. To your point, there was a lot of pre-planning that was being done that did not include the cost of travel again for corporate and the adaptability of what corporate businesses like now with the remote ability and so forth. But there's a cause and effect to this right now that I think we haven't seen played out the effect. It's kind of like search engine marketing in some strange way. Initially, there was the very blunt instrument of black and white. Then it was more nuance of black and nuance of white. And then it got into shades of color and on and on and on. And I mean that by long tail discussions. Yeah. Simple single word searches turn into multi-word searches. We're at that point now where basically we went through a process of when vaccination became, first we were all one united. There was no vaccine. We were being unaffected. And the only polarization was how we reacted to that, mask or no mask. And so that meant people that were willing to travel versus people that weren't willing to travel, regardless of the risk. Then we got the vaccination, and we still had the polarization of those that weren't going to go over and get the vaccine to those that were. Now we're getting fragmentation. We're getting people that are not wearing a mask, they're getting affected by this, that are now responding differently than those that are still adamant about not reacting to this at all. So we're getting fragmentations within these segmentations as we go forward and farther. And I think that from a responsive business, from how we plan the marketing, we have to be very careful, because we also have progressed since we last were there. We focused a lot on our cleaning policies and the methodologies of what we're doing to ensure safety. Now we went and failed miserably in service in general. I'm not saying everybody. Obviously, Dean had an amazing Mexico experience. But, for the most part, our industry has failed. And we even see articles going back to something Adele pointed out with hotel recovery. They just had a recent article pop up about brands acknowledging their failure in response, where they made it clear that they felt that they did not complete everything that they would like to have done in their response to this as an unprecedented event that they couldn't really have pre-planned for until it occurred. And I'm not trying to throw disparaging things at them. It's just everybody reacted differently in the way that they did. So right now, a planning phase of this, to your point, Tim, is really about conditions of what you are thinking you're going to have to do and having the plans in preparation for it. Will there be a smaller fragment of people that are still wanting and willing, or is it going to be still people at a volume that you can attain? But having the plans for both is the critical component to that. So I definitely agree with you, but I do think that this discussions that I've had with you guys over the past year have truly been helpful for me to just step outside of what I think in my own head to listening to somebody else's talk about what's in their head and say, well, what if I considered that? What would it do for what I was thinking? And it's been very, very helpful in this process. So thank you for that in that sense.
One thing about the fragmentation of the people who are, willing to wear masks or willing to get vaccinated, I heard that people are now going in disguise on the news they were mentioning to get vaccinated, or trying to find ways to discreetly get vaccinated because they don't want to tell their spouse or their family members. They don't want anyone they know to think that they went vaccinated, but they're afraid not to get vaccinated now. So something positive is happening, at least. But I thought that was pretty wild.
Yeah, it's strange, because now we're back to the same polarizing conversation. I have clients that have people internally that are not wanting to get vaccinated, but the company is beginning to enforce the fact that they want vaccinated employees. And now we're creating that polarization internally again. Before it seemed like this subsided because it was no longer a key issue. I was not arguing. I was deliberating with a client as to the merit of continuing our safety and security protocol advertisement. Like, just continue. And they're like, we don't want to focus on that anymore. We want that to be past tense. We don't want to refer to masks in our cleansing policy and so forth the way we were doing. We want to talk about happy and good and come enjoy and have fun and it's all over and Big Witch is dead and all this other stuff. And I don't want to say I was right or beat my chest. I know their rationale of why they want to do that. They want to get in the rearview mirror and just focus on the value proposition of coming in and enjoying their product. But now it's a matter of, do we dust them back off, or do we just keep going on with what we're doing currently? So it's hard to say. Nope. Tim was having audio issues too. Melissa, what else? I mean, gosh dang, are you dealing with the same kind of data you're dealing with now, or it's a whole different world for you?
I posted in the chat the most recent study from Longwoods. I heard Amir on a Clubhouse earlier this week. So this is version 43 of their sentiment study. It's weird to be not talking about the fuel sentiment study, but whatever. I'm moving on.
We'll work with it.
If you look at this and you scroll through, I don't know, like up to slide 5, and there's a question about indication of coronavirus impacting decision to travel in the next 6 months. There's a huge jump in the last 2 weeks. 26% up to 34% are now saying that, their decision is somehow going to be impacted. So that is extremely concerning to me. And then on slide 8, travelers planning to change upcoming travel plans due to COVID-19, again, from 47% up to 56%. So more than a half at this point, again, are having, some sort of impact on travel plans. So it's not surprising. I'm not going to pretend to, predict anything. I suspect it's going to continue an upward trend. And this is so, so here I am, week 3 into this new job that I love. I'm so excited about. But here I am trying to build useful reports. And we're all sitting here spinning our heads about, what can I compare this to? I can't compare it to 2020. I can't compare it to 2019 because it's still not even apples. There's nothing that I can trend at this point in time. Nothing.
Yeah.
I'm just taking it week by week and saying this is where we are, and that's all I can say. Sure, things are looking super great against 2020 and super great against 2019, but so what? Great.
Melissa, I'm wondering what the situation with the labor shortage is like for you guys now. Is it getting better?
I wish I could answer that question, but I don't know. I'm not that far into all the operations yet.
It's interesting you bring up about the data correlations. Dean, you've been a proponent of this for a long time about 2019 was probably the last time that we had historical numbers that would give some trend predictability to what they thought was going to happen before the bottom fell out. Then, as you pointed out, 2020 was a total scratch because there was no reference point other than the experience of the 2020 market. And now 2021 is it's kind of like you're starting the engine of a car and it races and hits red line right off the bat, and then now all of a sudden it sputters out again. It's like, oh, well, that didn't work. And how do you balance that?
Plus, you have the whole seasonality issue on top of that. So, this is hitting towards end of summer, certainly end of summer planning. So it's like, yes, traffic is dropping off. Yes, bookings are dropping off, but it's also the end of, it's petering out towards the end of summer travel. So
here's a weird thought that I had as a discussion with somebody that wasn't a client. It was just open discussion, kind of like we do the show here, but in different ways. Like, just picture, and we just did this hypothetical. What if this is a magical moment in time that we can truly validate you can create demand? In the sense that we have an ambiguous audience that are looking either way. They have the desire. So it's not, we're creating desire. We're not artificially creating the push, the velocity. Okay. Think of it as a math equation. We're not pushing the velocity. Okay. We're creating mass for this. And how is it that we know that the interest is there, but if we can somehow find those things that are defining the decision process, we can truly affect the demand to us by that process. It was a hypothetical conversation. I'm not saying that this was a solution. This wasn't a modality, just well, here we are. We often, and revenue managers people are the first people to go over and say, you can't create demand. There is no creation of the demand. It's just how you handle that demand, by rate, by availability, by comp. You have the mitigation of it. And, in revenue management, you have the entire hypothetical unconstrained demand. If you had an infinite capability of adding inventory to your business, how much business would you have? That's like the economics question. Okay. Well, flip it on its other side. Instead of the unconstrained demand, what about the creation of demand based on the fact that there is a momentum to want it? You have the product. It's the product to market, and solidifying the means of getting it to the people that want it. And that's the question of defining how is it that you can determine those aspects that will allow them to want your product. Hence, really, and by definition, create the demand, because you are responding to something that's there. So you have created the demand to your own market. I say that from the idea that the conversation came around one of my clients in Vancouver, where their comp set pretty much shut down and went out of business for most of them. And they survived quite well for strategies and so forth. Not patting ourselves back, just the fact that they survived through that process. So now we're going back to the fact that Canada is opening up, but they're opening up to only vaccinated people. They still have hotspots in Canada. So Canada isn't totally solved. It's not like it's a magic case study of success. They have their hotspots. But what they do with the hotspots is similar to what EU is doing, where they just shut it down. Okay, you guys, no more after 10 p.m. on the bars, no more liquor service, no more this. Retail outlets are closed. There's no gatherings. They're very quick to respond to any fluctuation in the COVID count. So from that, it immediately changes demand to market. Where this hotel's in Vancouver, there's in summertime, there's some really cool places, literally cooler places up north of them that people like going to. Well, their infection rate went up and they shut it down. And all of a sudden, those people that both live there and were going to go there, they don't want to burn their vacation time. They want some place to go. So am I creating that demand? Not really, but I am funneling that demand by retargeting to those people and saying, hey, can't do this, but you can do this. Or, you were going to go there, but now you can go here. I don't know. It kind of goes to what Melissa was saying, is like, what number is a good number? I would probably say not the numbers of production, but the unrealized revenue number, because that's always been the hardest number to convince any client is, what is the unrealized revenue? If you're telling them about a project of what they could make, they equate it to what it's going to cost versus what they're actually currently making. So that unrealized revenue discussion, I think, is an interesting number to come up with. I know, am I barking up the wrong tree, Melissa? You're the data person.
I'm good. I think you're good.
Yeah.
No, but you're absolutely right. It is always about, so the demand is shifting, right? So where I had my eyes set on, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm going to do. Everything has changed. Now I'm shifting that. And we've seen that increase in your local traffic, your drive market traffic, and all of those different things. We've heard all those conversations. So how do you shift yourself so that now where somebody's aiming in a different spot, you move and put yourself in front of their sights again and put yourself in front of where they're aiming. And that can be a lot of different things. It can be, I'm reminded of a property that I was talking to in North Dakota a couple of years ago. And they lived outside of the major city, lived outside, that sounds the right word, but their property was in a secondary market just outside of a major city. And their draw was always for people getting out of the city, which of course now is working well for them. But they had an indoor water park. Now, not to misunderstand, this wasn't a Great Wolf Lodge or anything like that. By indoor water park, I mean that they had a nice pool inside, one or two slides, water slides that went with it and so on. And that was really what they sold to the people coming out of the city. But they also had around them a huge parking lot. In fact, you could go and park your RV there and so forth. So they had huge parking lot space. And one of my suggestions to them was, well, number one, let's cater to RVs because we know people are using those now. So let's focus on that market a little bit. But also establish an event like a flea market or something of that nature. You've got enough space that you can be socially distanced, right? So you can have plenty of room in between vendors. You've got enough space for parking. Use what you've got. But you're right. You're not creating demand unless you're getting somebody to go there for a reason. Why were you there to begin with? Well, that why is gone, right? It might have been because there was a business next door or whatever the case may be. Your previous why has stopped. You've got to create a new why.
Absolutely. And you have to share the story, in a way that where people will see it. And I don't believe that is true about that you can't create demand. I think that social media itself created demand for travel. It created a generation of people who love to travel, probably even more than generations before, because they're constantly looking at these beautiful pictures of amazing experiences. And they say, you know what, I want that more than I want a house. I want that more than I want whatever it is that the previous generation wanted. And I know that I've looked at pictures and said, I don't know what country that's in, but I want to go there because that's amazing. I did not say I'm going to go there and where is there a bed and a shower in that area. I just saw an experience, and I didn't care where it was as long as it was a safe place.
Yeah, these are, and this is what I'll miss about not going to the conferences that we were at HSMI or High Tech, is if you get a revenue manager, a marketer, and an operations person at a bar, it's worse than bringing up religion. Just bring up demand, because you will have completely different. It's almost like the priest, the rabbi, and whatever the atheist, the atheist in there, because you have three completely different perspectives on what demand is. What you just said, Del, was the fact that it's there. It's a dormant, Newton's theory of once emotion, always emotion kind of thing. Well, demand is a motionless thing. It's sitting there. And all you're doing is taking however means of communication you have and tapping that there. You're putting it in motion. You're saying, hey, we have this. And from doing good marketing and doing good awareness of what you're doing, you pull in what people are wanting to do because of that. And in many ways, they may not know they wanted to do it until they were aware of it. Okay.
That's right. So you created the demand. Exactly.
Maybe we could throw in quantum mechanics in this, that, it's everything until it's observed. It's like, well, no, I'm trying to be all mathy for Melissa, just all mathy for Melissa. It's what it's going to be. So, so you have that, but then if you talk to revenue management, it is a defined quantity. It is X interest. This is what's coming to market, because they deal in the tangible conversions. And this has been always an argument. I used to do this with Rocket all the time with HSMEI. Marketing talks about the predication to what revenue management deals with. Revenue management deals with the realities of optimum booking window. When they come in, they make that decision of conversion of acquisition. Then there's arrival, duration, and exiting. That's their math numbers. So for them, it's about what's being booked, when it's being booked, how long it's being booked, and what it was worth. That's their math. So for them, they're very pragmatic about demand. Demand is a function of math. This is how many people booked in the market. That's my demand. That's a number for them. This is how many people came to our market based on the amount of inventory in market. And then they make up a hypothetical unconstrained demand to show whether or not they have elasticity to being able to get their fair share and all this other stuff. That's their world. They do very hard, rational numbers. Marketing is about talking about all the people that didn't come. Out of 100 people that come to your website and you get a 3.5%, click on to different things, that means 97 or 96.5% of the people did not do anything. So we see that as unrecognized demand. Like, wow, we missed 96% of everybody that came to our website of opportunity. Or, and you add that to everybody else in the market, you see all these people that you missed doing something with. Okay. So we see the opportunity of unrealized revenue. And then you talk to operations, and their demand is completely about the actualization, much similar to revenue management, of people that showed up. This is how many rooms I had. This is how many rooms I sold to those people. My demand was X. It was 80% of my total availability of inventory. They're very pragmatic about it. So I just think that, Melissa, going back to your original thing about this, was just the fact that you're looking at actualized convertible demand. And I'm just throwing out the question of, wonder if you flipped it to the other side of the equation of the observable total demand of unrealized revenue. What really is still out there that isn't being recognized by the interest tracking of, and I'll put this in a pragmatic way. Okay. Advertising for specific things versus interesting categories by trend. Like, it's simple as looking at like a Google Trends versus just your actual traffic. How much of what is not coming to you is potentially able to come to you? Is there a math number you can create from that? And this would come over to what exactly is the market, particularly for that hotel. Is it an event-driven thing? Is it a cycle of interest, seasonality? But whatever it is, what else are you competing with other markets that would have that same similar interest, and see whether or not you can then begin to see some fluctuations of that for the data you're trying to interpret of, okay, we think that people, and let's just take the example of the rest of this year, holidays. We say we're not willing to predict what's going to happen in September, October. I will be happy to make a plan that I have, and that is, I think holidays, regardless of the conditions of COVID right now, are going to be extended on length of stays, and their durability of interest is going to be diverse, because not for the duration that they're going to be staying with. They're going to need accommodations because they all can't stay at grandma's house or whatever, metaphorically. That's I'm willing to bank on. I'll put to Tim's question, I'll put money on the table that says I'm going to market my clients under the auspices of what I can sell those people, because I believe that's going to have an impact. And I mean that from the stride of everybody that is blind to what COVID is, to those that are thankful that they survived COVID, to those that are thankful that they predicated precautions against COVID. I think universally, the desire to gather for family, for holidays, will be an extended time frame. Thanksgiving isn't just going to be showing up Wednesday night and leaving on Sunday. I think it's going to be showing up on whenever, a couple of days earlier, and staying a couple of days well after the weekend. I think it's going to be a elongated thing. And Christmas
you heard it here first, folks. You heard it
here first. My prediction
Friday the 13th. That's the major prediction. 3 months from now,
Friday the 13th. Yeah, you know what it is? That might be explaining Stephanie's audio. And I know Dean, I don't know whether you guys noticed it, but his audio was not coming through his earbuds. It was coming through the computer. So I think he was having an audio issue too. So it's an audio thing today, I guess. So, all right. I ranted about my topic on that. Melissa, it is so fun. I'm not that indifference to Dean or Adele, but just it's so rare to have you. Is there something that you would like to talk about?
I just came to say hi. I missed everybody. It feels like forever ago since I've actually said hi. So I just want to see everybody's faces.
It is now. Are you so important in the organization that when you walk in the room, all your constituents get quiet, like, she's here?
This is my room in my office in the house. So yes, my dog goes crazy. I am the most important person in the room.
You are the most important person in the room. So let me ask that just from an angle of it. So you've not really gotten into the corp office or a central office yet since you picked up the gig?
I am remote forever.
Wow. That's awesome. I mean, that's awesome in a lot of ways.
It's a little weird because the rest of the team is on property, or I should say in the corporate office, but we're going to make it work.
Wow. You should do the whole VR goggly thing and do the whole VR virtual thing. I mean, just saying, geeky me.
I missed some pizza a couple weeks ago. It's going to happen. I'm probably going to miss some happy hours, but we're going to make it work.
Where is corporate office for Westgate?
A CoE.
A where?
Out in Orlando somewhere.
Oh, yeah, I know. Okay, I was about to say, it's like, wait a minute, that sounds like a Florida place, but okay. Wow. Did they put a little cardboard fixture of you in the room with them so that they feel like you're there,
I don't think I've made it to that status yet. I think I need to prove myself a little more.
Oh, man. I can imagine from a team. But now, do you have people that work for you in that group? Or are you working in collaboration, peer level, all that kind of stuff?
Yes. I am part of a large marketing team that is awesome. And honestly delightfully surprised at the amount of communication between departments. It's really, I'm really
cool
excited.
Organization. Yeah, it's a really cool organization from the outside and from the times I worked with them on different things. It's you picked an awesome way to hitch a wagon to, because they are very good in that sense. So congratulations on all levels for that. Now, okay, shifting gears from what you did to what you're doing now. Are you changing platforms of what you use for data collection? Or are you still using the same tools? Have you changed stuff? Have you gone from Tableau to R, or are you using BigQuery, or have you changed any of your metrics?
I haven't changed any of my metrics. We have a lot of work to do on the data side. There's been a gap for a while in actually having an analyst on board. So I've got a lot of baby steps to take before we can get to, bigger, giant projects. So there's that.
Mm.
But yeah, we're using Google Analytics, and there's that.
Well, yeah, then it's yeah. I was playing with a tool that I have for a while ago, Woxio, which I should just let you play with it sometime. OWIXO. OWIXO. It's a BigQuery data. It's actually truly AI, which is really strange. They use an AI-based platform, but they use Watson for it. And it does some amazing interpretive data analytics if you put the proper data in, which is always the case. And analytics data gets skewed so quickly. Google Analytics data gets skewed so quickly. But it's a pretty cool tool because it does give some interesting trend interpretations, which a lot of them aren't like, rocket scientists, but then there's other ones that seemed a little bit intuitive, like, didn't think about that. So it's been kind of an interesting tool, but it uses BigQuery, and that was a learning curve. That's like a learning curve vertical. BigQuery stuff is painful to learn. I'm still just a novice at it, but from what I'm playing with, it seems pretty cool. So just curious.
I have people now, like I have, IT people, which is, and project managers and things. So I'm sure that as a little bit more time, as I get my feet under me a little bit, I will be leaning on them to, yes. I know that we're using Salesforce as our CRM, and they are using Datorama for something. So I'm supposed to be having a demo of that. I've heard good things about Datorama before.
Datorama's cool. Yeah. It's a good collector of data, actually. It's got some pretty cool function tools for collection of data and so forth. Now, are you going to be able to go to any conferences or anything, or are you pretty much just kept in the back and pumping out data? Are you the Dan Aykroyd of
I apparently am going to be speaking at HSMAI.
Oh, fantastic.
Awesome.
And now I'm really sad you're not going to be there. I thought finally I get to meet some people in person.
I know.
Are you doing Rock or Marketing Conference?
The marketing conference.
Are you doing the Pikachuka thing, or is it a 7-minute thing, or you got a different presentation?
I think it's longer than 7 minutes. Question mark.
Yeah.
It's the 2020, so 20 slides for 20 seconds each. So it adds up to 6 minutes and 40 seconds.
Pikachuka, yeah.
Okay.
I've done it a few times, and you have to insist that you move the clicker. You do not want to be in a thing where it's auto changing. It's not good. I've never had to rehearse for anything so deeply. I must have done it 100 times before I went.
I cheated. I did my Kobayashi Maru with that one. And this was before they allowed you to control it yourself. You had to have it timed. It was actually the first year that they had done this for that. And what I did was I put a progress bar on the bottom of the slide, just a thin line on the bottom that I could see how long the slide was running before it changed. And then I modified the length of the time on the slide for the slides I wanted to talk more about, and shortened the time on the other, so it fit the 7 minutes. But if each slide was different in its length, and that way I could sound really much more smarter than I was by timing my conversation pretty much as I was watching the bar, knowing when to shut up because I was going to go to the next slide. So yeah, I kind of followed the rule, but not exactly its intent, but not exactly the rule, whatever. But anyway, it is very hard. It's actually probably one of the hardest presentations to come up with is the pre-programmed timeline rather than the open-ended conversations by far.
Still looking forward to it.
But
it's awesome.
it makes you come up with a really tight set, and it also, supposed to be that it's an image, like a really memorable, bold image,
right,
maybe with a headline. It's not meant to be, a bunch of bullet points and things like that. It's meant to have the images capture your imagination.
The way it looks, the way it looks right now, Robert's probably going to make it, and I'll probably ask if Robert, because with the TV channel that we broadcast on, we can do live coverage. And we've already got the fact that we're going to do that anyway. We're going to have our typical coverage booth out front like we usually do and all this other stuff. But with me not being there, I'm just going to ask Robert if he can do that kind of broadcast. I'll give him the keys to broadcast and so forth. So, hopefully we'll be able to do a broadcast of yours and other people that we know that
Stuart is also presenting.
Yeah. Mr. Super important, Chamber, CVB, Myrtle Beach, Mr. Myrtle Beach. Yeah, now everybody wants to be his friend. But it's funny as you're talking to people and the technologies that are out there that are being presented. That's the part I miss about high tech going, is the fact that I really wanted to see what was being pushed for tech in the past. I already knew there was going to be a lot of SaaS stuff there and things like that. And I got that last Hospitality Upgrade magazine. I'm going through it now to kind of look at some stuff as to what they're talking about technology-wise. It's going to be at high tech. but it really is kind of interesting that they went all in the in-person stuff. There's no backup virtual.
Which is concerning at this particular moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
because it's like, okay, so what happens if their audiences begin to go downwards? I don't want that. I really do, but I also don't want people put people in jeopardy artificially either. But like the ALHOA conference where Stephanie was with us earlier, I know I'd love to have asked her how that went. But the ALHOA conference, I was seeing some social backlash. People were like, "What do you think you guys are doing?
Yeah.
Why? So I was seeing that, and then the NAFTA, the National Association for Restaurateurs here, that was going to have their big, huge conference in Orlando, like $250,000 square footage kind of thing. They canceled it 20 days out ahead of it. Done. Off.
So I will say this from a personal experience. So I flew to Orlando to meet my team in July. Mm-hmm. And obviously it was the first time on a plane since forever. Mm-hmm. And flying to Orlando after a year and a half of being isolated in my house was such an experience.
Yeah.
I thought I'd be okay on the plane. I'm like, okay, everybody's wearing masks. It's the law. You have to wear a mask. And then you're standing in line at TSA and people are like right up against you. And I'm like, yeah. And then I'm sitting on the plane with very nice people, all masked, and I'm still just kind of cringy. And then I got to the Orlando airport and I just about lost my mind.
Oh yeah, nobody's wearing nothing.
So many people. It was just so many people. And bathrooms and just I wanted to slather myself. I wanted to take a shower in Purell.
Yeah.
And I'm not a germaphobe. Like, I am not one of those people, but this experience has changed me. This pandemic had an impact psychologically on all the things. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen here.
Yeah. Did you going to say something? Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I've made it a point. Now, of course, up until recently here, I have, like everybody, haven't traveled for like a year. So things may have changed. But in my travels, I always made it a point of taking note of where is that bathroom in the airport that nobody uses that I can go into and just have a little bit of space here. And I will confess, I'm going to raise my hand and make a confession here. Those assisted bathrooms where they want, I will use those. If nobody else is using them, I will go in, lock the door. I've got a whole bathroom to myself.
Yeah. It is. It's funny how, Stephanie was been a road warrior the whole time. I'll speak about her since she's not here, but she was traveling even before vaccinations and so forth, because that's her business model. She had to be in different places, and she did it like a trooper with the masks and the wiping and the gloves and everything else like that to keep as safe as possible. But I think it is going to have an impact. We do know that. We know, but that cause and effect thing. Right now, I think we're in the shock of the dramaticity of what's happening and who it's affecting and how it's affecting them and to the level it's affecting them. And when that happened before, there was this latency of then the impact of what it did to modify people's behavior of their plans. And travel was one of them. And I think, again, going back to our initial industry reaction was shock and awe. And then it was, okay, look at us putting gloves on. Look at us with this hand sanitizer. Look at us wiping elevator buttons down. Look at us doing all that stuff. And now we've gone through the whole, I can't even give you basic service. I can't even handle the demand at the front desk. I can't give you food because there's too many people. And so we went through this very bad service function. If we go back to now we're going back to the cleaning thing again, I think we're going to have a bit of a skepticism issue with us as well, where people are going like, wait a minute, these are the same people that couldn't even give me a breakfast bag because they had not enough people to do this. So now I'm supposed to believe that you have enough people to keep things ultra clean. And also, to be fair, we've also learned that a lot of the contagion capabilities aren't necessarily surface driven. So that isn't a freebie pass of saying how well we're keeping things clean, because it's no longer the heightened priority that it once was. It's more about, are we doing the safety things with masks and distancing and things like that? And I think also, from the baddest experiences that people have had, I think there's going to be a bit of a disbelief that we're really able to enforce that with our staff, and we couldn't get the staff to do basic service. So, we're going to have different communications, I think, in our dialogues if this begins to impact from a cause and effect perspective people's travel plans. And they might just, where they were thinking about doing smaller travel, they might just keep it back up to a holiday travel. They might say, you know what, this stuff's getting out of hand. We're just going to pause until we know we really do want to do something by going with family to someplace. And they might just delay what they were possibly going to do and aggregate it to a larger event for themselves with more of a reason, like holidays or whatever like that. So I'm sad to say that I think trick or treat is going to be on a stick again, but yeah.
To that point of the communications, one of the things I have been a huge proponent of last year at this time, you heard me say this, I'll say it again this year, is that's all the more reason that direct bookings are so very important. You have got to be able to control the communication with your guest.
Yeah.
And if you're going to sorry to Booking.com and Expedia, not trying to bash you, but if you're going to let the OTAs do that for you, you didn't learn your lesson on that, I can't help.
You're right.
Yeah, and it's something that was brought up in the article from the Hotel Recovery magazine talking about the brand's self-admittance of not being able to keep up with what they could or should potentially have done during all of this, is the admittance that the OTAs and Airbnb and VRBOs and so forth had a clearer message. Mm-hmm. And we've seen them really lean into the relationship building communications more so than ever before, of like, hey, we got your back, or you're not alone kind of thing. They're really trying to develop the value proposition of, it's apparent nobody's taking care of you on your vacation, and we at least are a one-stop shop for everything. So if you do everything with us, we can help you potentially figure things out when things change, which they are always doing right now. And they're pushing that message. And meanwhile, and I hate to say this to the brands, all I got is pretty much generic additional monies to go in for travel ads and piggyback money for meta search if you want to do it. And there's nobody on the other end that's really helping with market strategy for hotels. I mean, it's a constant gripe that very few hotels are doing much from a brand perspective to really help themselves in market, that they're not doing just for themselves. I'd love for somebody to tell me a different story. That's why I was hoping Stephanie stayed on long enough without her audio issues to give some hope that brands are beginning to do a rebound of something. And that's with me having access because of my client relations going into the platforms to see what they're promoting. I don't see it. I don't see stuff. I don't see a cohesive program. I don't see anything more than Marriott Bomboy saying, now's the time to travel. Whoops. Now we're misstepped. Keeping to the spirit that we wanted to be around an hour, we're at around an hour. Is there a particular topic of any sort that anybody wanted to make sure we hit that we didn't hit? Because as I mentioned in the email to everybody that was out, these are kind of the waning days of open topic conversation. We're going to, by the transition of September, go to specific co-host, specific topic, and kind of guide it that way. So this is kind of like the last of the Wild West discussions we've been doing now for what is, this is about our anniversary. It's in the middle of August. I think next week is our actual anniversary show, but we're at that point now. I didn't want to make Friday the 13th our anniversary show. Might have been, I don't know.
Robert was trying to encourage us all to pause and have a few minutes of dead air so that we could look at the newsletter that he apparently sent out.
Did he finally send that bad boy out?
Yeah, I see that it says here that Intercontinental is about to launch a new luxury and lifestyle brand, but it doesn't say the name of it. Oh. Okay, tell me about it when you know more.
I will definitely. Well, okay. Let me take that back. Okay, the brands have done something during this pandemic. They've announced yet again more brands.
Yeah, right.
So yes, they have done something. They've diluted more of their messaging by saying, "Oh wait, we have another idea," as if they didn't already have enough ideas on the table. And I think, again, referring to this article, and I'll make sure it's in the show notes of the show as well, in the Hotel Recovery, they're talking about the fact that brands are struggling with trying to identify what they do, and they have fallen short. And there is a lot of questions from franchisees as to their long-term relationship with the brands as franchisors. That there is a lot of questions coming up. I know that there was an article that came up about the hotel in California in by San Jose that I tried to nail down Tammy on because she lived nearby it. That got closed up. And she did say there was a mitigating circumstances. The owners already had financial issues, so this was an excuse to get from underneath the brand umbrella and so forth. But meanwhile, the hotel sits closed with a fence around it. But it did raise the question, how many more ownership groups are going to begin to legally challenge the durability of their franchise relationships based on the inadequate performance of brands to satisfy their business needs, their obligations from a business perspective as to brand contribution, brand commitment. All the brand has really been doing in general concept is softening their FFE requirements. They're not pushing so hard on renovations and brand standards at this point. They've softened temporarily their brand fees to soften the financial blows, but there's not been a true, clear answer from any of the brands about helping their hotels other than brand awareness. And again, they put into the idea that, like Marriott, like, hey, it's time to go out and enjoy life and get back together. And now look what's happened. Now it's a question mark. Is that still a good message? Or do they need to dial that back again? Is that still, or are they going to go double in and go all in on it and keep pushing it, even though there is a growing concern potentially as to people's demand for travel? All this and more at 11. It's kind of.
You know what? I'm always so talking so fondly about the communication tools like Beekeeper or Nudge, that where you can push out communications and ideas and training and little snippets of video or pictures or whatever descriptions that you can constantly communicate to your team, and their team can constantly communicate to you when they need to have a two-way communication, bring something up the ladder, not just down. I don't even believe in that up and down. The top should be serving the masses. So why couldn't a brand do that with their hotel owners? Why are they not, if they're not feeding them constant inspiration, ideas, tips, training, tools, things that can elevate the management on the ground at each property? It's so sad for me sometimes to read these beautiful mission statements, inspiring, beautiful mission statements from companies, and see that it's not being fulfilled on the ground because the people who are managing or owning those properties are not enveloped in that message, and therefore they are not going to live that message if they're not continually marinating in it. You know what I mean? There's got to be a better way that the brands, and there are tools that you can use to train your team. This could just be the same, a very similar way of using those wonderful tools. Communication is everything. And
well, as you pointed out with Salesforce, they bought Slack, which is almost the number one communication platform, and so we'll see what Salesforce. They said it was a perfect fit, and I think in lots of ways it might be in the sense of that. But we just to kind of wrap up this kind of part of the conversation with it. I've always known that in C-level conversations, there's usually three questions that get asked about any initiative for a new project or new initiative for anything, and that is, how much does it cost? How much are we going to make off of it? And who else is doing it? I think what's been happening with brands is a lot of franchisees ask what brand's reaction is to something. Like, well, is Marriott doing it? Is Hilton doing it? Is IHG doing it? As kind of a filter as to validating the initiative. Like, well, if those people who are supposed to be smarter, bigger, better, okay, are taking on this kind of thing, then it's worthy of my consideration because that means it's been vetted by people that are smarter, bigger, better. Problem is, the brands aren't living up to the smarter, bigger, better conversation anymore. You have a CEO that willfully says that they're pandering more to ownerships than they are to guests. and they're diluting the Starwood membership program, which was more centric to guests than there was to ownerships. And they've admittedly said that they're building the membership profile associated with Bonvoy to be more value proposition to the ownerships of the hotels than they are the guest centrics. So how does that make people feel signing up, knowing that they're basically playing against the house? It's like going to Las Vegas. The house is already going to win. It's how much you might be able to get from underneath that you get, and how much fun you have from doing it. Well, I'm sorry, but having to go to a hotel for 10 times before I get a free bottle of water is not an incentive program for me. Not really, Karen. Don't really care. It's not worth it for me. I can buy it myself. But what is a value proposition based on recognition of my value as a guest to you, and how well you do that by your service profile, as you pointed out, Adele, and by the amenity value proposition or cost factor associated with my staying with you? Now that has a value proposition. So brands have not done anything notoriously good in relationship to that, and they tend to follow each other like the little lemmings. What Marriott does, Hilton does. What Hilton does, IHG does. What IHG does,
that's also called the cover your rear, or CYA.
Oh yeah, that we all
strategy.
The politics of it.
As long as somebody else is, yeah, exactly. As long as somebody else already did it, then I can just shift the blame and nobody gets mad at me.
And that's why the question always comes up: who else is doing it? It's not always for the verification of bigger, better, and smarter. It also is to say, well, hey, if they're doing it and you blame me for it, blame them too, because you're willing to accept that. So, all said and done, Melissa, what's the future for you? Are you going to be able to come back on the show regularly? Are you going to take over a show and dominate the world? What's the plan here?
I don't know what regularly is, but certainly on occasion, I will love to say hello and say what's going on in the world.
I would love that as well. I think and like I said, as we go into the new format, I'll be sending out a calendar so people can grab what show they would like to do, in addition to co-hosts that we're going to start bringing in from other places and doing other things. So I would welcome the opportunity, Melissa, if you ever wanted to dominate the world by taking over one of the shows. And it's the Melissa Hour, and just go and do all
I'll very much be in the audience regardless.
With that, I guess really honestly, we were a little over an hour, which I anticipate we're going to run over from time to time on this kind of stuff. Closing comments and or just if you want to find you, Dean, we'll start with you. We're going to go reverse instead of the girls first. We'll do the guys first, or the guy first. I guess.
I'm in the minority now, right? Yes.
yeah, you are. Yes, you are. No, I am.
So actually, Dean Schmit, I founded Basecamp Meta and MetaSearchMarketing.com last year for helping to teach people how to run MetaSearch and or run MetaSearch campaigns for you. And I am also the MetaSearch specialist at a digital agency called 8560. So we had, in fact, actually, ironically, when we were trying to figure out what's the right title, what should we call me, I just said, you know what, if you look me up on LinkedIn, you'll see it this way. My title is MetaSearch.
So I'm like the whole thing, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm like Lightning McQueen from Cars. I am speed. No, I am MetaSearch. But that's it.
When I think MetaSearch, I think Dean Schmit. So it all works out for me just fine.
There you go.
Miss Adele, people to find you.
You can find me at AdeleGutman.com. In my previous life as the Vice President of Sales, Marketing, and Revenue for the Library Hotel Collection, we had the highest guest satisfaction rating of any luxury hotel brand in the world year after year, the number one hotel in the world, the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 hotels in a row on the top of TripAdvisor in New York City. And I now teach hotels and any hospitality professional how to get great reviews and how to rise to the top of TripAdvisor and make more money. So contact me at AdeleGutman.com.
Melissa, do you want to let out your secret email so that people can abuse you by calling up and asking for data-related questions and the meaning of life and its intricacies?
Those people can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm there. Just spell my name correctly, otherwise you won't find me.
You won't find you. Won't find you. No, that's true. That's true.
And I'm occasionally on Clubhouse. It seems like that party has sailed, right? I mean, Ed's not doing his morning thing anymore, and you're once or twice a week.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. With Clubhouse, it turned out to, with me launching the Hospitality Marketing Club and people going to be paying for information, what I ended up finding was I wanted to be on there for dialogue. I wanted people to talk as I talk. And I know I talk too much, but it turned out that really when people were just showing up for listening to me talking, and I'm like, I already do the podcast, I already do the live show, and doing 4 days a week of that, where
it was a lot.
basically,
Yeah.
and then I'm doing it and I'm giving them information, and they're actually literally people that were missing me were like, Lauren, I need you to answer the question about such and I'm like, dude, that's what I get paid to do. I can't keep going on a platform and giving answers to everybody. I want to be helpful, but I also don't want to be a dork and say, well, I could give you the answer, but you have to pay me. I don't want to be that guy. But if you're not going to enjoy, I couldn't get people to talk where I really wanted to listen to people and get an open dialogue. And I just couldn't get people. People was like, oh, I'm just here to listen. I get that some people are like that, but somebody come up on stage and talk, at least give me an opinion or something. So I got to a point where it's like, you know what? I'll come on once a week. I'll keep it to an hour at most, and usually half hour is what I'm trying to shoot for on that. And I'm going to talk, but I'm also going to stop when it's like, look, guys, if that's really what you're interested in knowing about, that's kind of what I do to get paid. So if you want to get that kind of answer, we can talk about what it's going to take for you. It got to a point where it's like, man, oh man, I was getting nothing but, how do you do this? How do you do that? Where do I find this? How do I make this? And I'm sitting there at first, I'm like, oh, hey, that's great. It's a question. Now it's like, no, I gotta turn the spigot off a little bit on that one. Then Ed just got too dang busy. And the same kind of thing happened where it turned out that the same people were coming up saying the same things. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, you know what? No, it's not. It was supposed to be fun. It stopped being fun for a while. Yep. So I'm just going back when it comes to time. And I'm not trying to knock it. I think it's still a great platform. I never really listened to many other people because a lot of it turned into self-promoting people where it's like, guys, I really want to come over and hear what everybody's opinion is. I don't want just one person selling me something. I want opinions. I want people to talk, and it just turned out that usually a lot of the rooms were one person pushing what they were doing and not a lot of about stuff. I don't mind answering questions. I just got to the point where I was the only one answering them. So understood. I love it. That's why I love this stuff, is because I hear everybody else. I'm like, hey, I didn't think about that, or I didn't look at it that way, and that makes it a lot more enjoyable than the other. So yeah, that's what I have in Clubhouse. But we have the TV channel, and oh man, just real quick for you guys, the people that are wanting to put content on are freaking brilliant. Oh my God, there's some people that want to put food and beverage stuff on that are just like, they're coming up with some incredible storyline stuff. My problem is it's mostly food and beverage stuff. I got to find people in their hotels. Problem is they're so darn busy with stuff, they haven't had a chance to do much. But the food and beverage stories of stuff, how to open a restaurant, how to run a restaurant, how to do catering, how to do banquets. What is it that for good service? People, schools, how to make pizza, coffee, charcuterie. I got all these things where people want to put their stuff on. My problem is it's going to turn into a food show. Food channel. It's like, I got to get some hotel stuff. So, Melissa, you need to do a data show. Just saying. Adele, sauce, service, and quality stuff. Okay. And then, I guess some people are interested in meta. I'm not sure. I think it's a lost art, Dean. I don't know.
I know. Yeah. I'll just make art, and I'll just talk about my art. And
get the fuzzy hair. Get the fuzzy hair.
Yeah, I'll do the fuzzy hair with the paintboard.
It's like, let's put some trees.
Cute little. This is adorable, isn't it?
Please. Hey,
a little cloud here.
That was a great show.
That was actually, it really was. Melissa, just or something else on the VR goggle thing, there's a platform called Noda. I think you would love it. If you ever did mind mapping, this is 3-dimensional. You're in a room and you're literally three-dimensional map, and it is just so cool. Anyway, that's just me. Anyways, all right. So with that, for those who want to find this show and all previous shows, the oldest archive is hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. I do not keep that one up with the latest shows other than just the single page forward. The real place to find all of this is at hospitalitychannel.tv. And then, of course, the latest show replay from the live side is at talktravel.tv. Or if you go on your Roku, Google Play, Amazon Prime, and Apple TV, you can go there and you can watch the episode for free on your TV if you'd like to on the Hospitality channel there. So it's even on Twitch. So even on your Xbox, you can watch the show. Just saying. With that, thank you, everyone, joining Friday the 13th. Nothing bad happened. Yeah, except for me getting hit. My office got hit by lightning a week ago. So that's why I'm at home, because my router is still dead. and a few other pieces of electronics that just, even past the surge wall, it's low wattage stuff, which I found out they never tell you about. Low wattage electronics.
Happened to me a year ago. My whole office blew up.
Yeah. And it's like, wait a minute, I had a surge protector. And like, yes, for most high wattage items, surge protectors were wonderful. But low wattage items like routers, security blocks, power blocks, calculator blocks, little miscellaneous, those little blocks that plug in the wall or plug into your surge protector, do not survive the surge protector. Nope. They just spoke something. So
lightning does not care.
Lightning does not care. Yes, okay. Anyways, thank you all so very much. Thanks for
Have a great week.
Bye, everyone.
And bye, everybody.
Bye.